There is an undeniable force in silence. When a breakup happens, the most natural human instinct is to seek validation, demand closure, or prove a point. However, the counterintuitive truth is that distance creates desire, and silence is the loudest response you can give. The no contact rule is not just a strategy, it is a psychological shift that places you back in control of your emotions, your narrative, and ultimately your self-worth. Imagine for a moment that love and attraction function much like supply and demand. When something is easily accessible, constantly available, or overly familiar, its perceived value diminishes. On the other hand, when something becomes scarce, when access is suddenly revoked, the mind begins to crave it. The absence of something triggers a stronger emotional reaction than its presence ever did. This is the exact principle that makes silence your greatest ally in making him feel the weight of the breakup 10 times harder. After a breakup, emotions run high. There's a temptation to express your pain, reach out for reassurance, or seek closure in conversations that ultimately serve no real purpose. But here's the harsh reality: closure is rarely given, it is something you grant yourself. The moment you chase, you affirm his decision. If he ended things, every text, every emotional plea, every attempt to reason with him only validates that he had the upper hand in walking away. Even if you ended it, excessive communication still signals that he has an emotional hold over you. The more reactive you are, the easier it is for him to detach. Why? Because he knows you're still there. Now, contrast that with silence. When you remove yourself completely, you disrupt his expectations. He anticipated you would reach out, that you would still be emotionally tied to him. But when you don't, it forces him to sit with the discomfort of losing you. He starts questioning, why isn't she reaching out? Did she ever love me as much as I thought? Is she already moving on? And here's the most fascinating part: he will begin to miss not just you, but the version of himself that existed when he was with you. Humans are wired to resist loss more than they seek gain. This means that the pain of losing something is far greater than the pleasure of gaining it. When you disappear, you become a psychological trigger, an unresolved thought that lingers in the back of his mind. Silence is not passive, it is active. It forces introspection. He starts remembering the way you made him feel, the presence you brought into his life, the irreplaceable qualities that set you apart. But this realization doesn't happen overnight. It happens in stages. 1, relief days 1 to 7. He feels free, thinking he made the right decision. He may even expect you to reach out. 2, curiosity, weeks 2 to 4. He notices your absence. His ego takes a hit when he realizes you haven't chased him. 3, doubt, weeks 4 to 6. He starts questioning the breakup, wondering if he miscalculated your emotional investment. 4, regret, week 6. If you've maintained distance and focused on yourself, he begins to feel the real loss. The critical mistake most people make is breaking no contact before it reaches stage 4. They let impatience and fear override logic, but true strength lies in restraint. There is nothing more compelling than a mystery. When you disappear from his world, you create a void that only you can fill. But here's the catch: you're no longer offering access. This dynamic shift unsettles him because for the first time he is the one left wondering, did she meet someone new? Is she happy without me? Did I make a mistake? These questions will haunt him in ways that direct confrontation never could. Instead of giving him closure on a silver platter, you leave space for his mind to wander, to obsess over what you might be doing, who you might be with, and whether or not he ever truly mattered. People respect what they fear losing. The moment you show that you are unshaken by his absence, that you refuse to beg for validation or explanations, you shift the power dynamic. You become the one who is desired rather than the one doing the desiring. This is where the transformation happens. You are no longer waiting for him to miss you. You are no longer living in response to him. Instead, you are reclaiming your energy, your time, and your self-worth. And in doing so, you inevitably make him feel the breakup 10 times harder than if you had spent weeks or months trying to convince him of your value. Silence is not just about withholding words, it's about redefining your presence. It's about showing through action that you are not an option to be reconsidered at his convenience, but a standard that he can no longer reach. And by the time he realizes what he lost, you'll already be too far ahead, too evolved, too deeply invested in your own joy to ever look back. There is something profoundly captivating about transformation. When someone expects you to crumble, to wallow in heartbreak, to shrink into the shadows of your former self, and instead you emerge stronger, more radiant, and entirely unbothered, it shifts the entire dynamic of power. The breakup that was supposed to leave you broken instead becomes the very thing that fuels your most remarkable evolution. This is the art of leveling up, the silent yet undeniable response that makes him feel the breakup 10 times harder. After a relationship ends, people often fall into one of 2 categories: those who stagnate in pain and those who use pain as a catalyst for reinvention. The latter is what leaves an imprint, what disrupts expectations, what unsettles the mind of the one who walked away. Growth is a language that needs no words. It is spoken through action, through presence, through an unshakable sense of self that becomes impossible to ignore. It is not about revenge, nor is it about proving a point. It is about becoming so engrossed in your own journey of improvement that, without effort, you become the living reminder of what he lost. The psychology behind this is undeniable. Human beings are naturally wired to be drawn toward things that evolve, that progress, that ascend. When someone sees you thriving physically, mentally, emotionally, it triggers a response in their subconscious. It forces them to reevaluate, to compare, to question. The mind starts playing tricks. Was she always this captivating? How did I not see this before? Did I misjudge her potential? And most importantly, has she now become someone out of my reach? The mistake many people make after a breakup is seeking validation in external gestures, waiting for a text, hoping for closure, looking for signs that they are still missed. But true power does not come from being acknowledged by the past. It comes from stepping so boldly into the future that the past is left stunned in its wake. The more you focus on yourself, the less you need the recognition of someone who failed to appreciate you in the first place. Physical transformation is often the most noticeable aspect of leveling up, but it is only a fraction of the equation. Yes, working out, dressing better, taking care of yourself, all of these things send a strong, undeniable message. But the real transformation happens internally. When confidence radiates from within, when energy shifts from seeking to attracting, when your aura becomes one of effortless self-assurance, it creates an unspoken effect that is impossible to ignore. The way you carry yourself changes, your standards rise, your energy no longer chases, it magnetizes. People are drawn to mystery, to depth, to those who have an undeniable presence that cannot be easily explained. When he sees that you are no longer the same, that you have stepped into a version of yourself that is more powerful, more refined, more unshakable, it unsettles him. It forces him to reflect, to analyze, to feel the full weight of what he took for granted. Because the truth is, most people expect familiarity. They expect to leave and find you exactly where they left you. They expect time to pause in their absence. But when you grow, when you become something unexpected, it disrupts their narrative. The most fascinating part of human nature is that we often only fully appreciate something when we realize it is no longer ours to have. And nothing amplifies this realization more than witnessing someone evolve beyond the version we once knew. When he looks at you and sees someone who no longer fits into the frame of his past memories, someone who has become too extraordinary to be placed back into the same chapter, he will feel the breakup on a level that words cannot reach. The irony is that by the time he feels it, you will no longer care. You will be too immersed in your own journey, too in love with the life you are creating, too focused on the doors that have opened since the one within closed. That is the ultimate power, not making someone regret losing you, but reaching a place where their regret holds no significance to you at all. People often believe that in order to make someone feel the weight of a breakup, they need to confront them directly through conversations, emotional confessions, or desperate to prove their worth. But the truth is, the most powerful form of impact is not created through words or explanations. It is created through presence, not just any presence, but a presence that is undeniable, effortless, and deeply compelling. A presence that does not chase, but instead commands attention simply by existing. There is an unspoken power in being seen, not in a way that screams for validation, but in a way that exudes self-sufficiency, joy, and magnetism. The moment you shift your focus away from the past and fully invest in your own life, you become something intriguing. And the most fascinating thing about human psychology is that people are naturally drawn to what appears valuable, what seems desired, what radiates confidence and contentment. This is the essence of social proof. When someone sees that others are drawn to you, that you are thriving in ways they never expected, it plants a seed of doubt in their mind. It disrupts their assumptions about you, about the breakup, about their own choices. The mind begins to wonder, was I wrong? Did I misjudge her? If other people see her worth so clearly, what did I fail to recognize? This internal questioning is what creates emotional turbulence, what forces someone to reassess what they once took for granted. The key is not to fabricate a new life for the sake of appearances, but to truly immerse yourself in experiences that enrich you. Surround yourself with people who uplift you, engage in activities that bring you genuine joy, explore new places, and expand your world beyond what it once was. This isn't about making someone jealous, it's about becoming the kind of person who is naturally magnetic. And as a byproduct of that transformation, they will feel your absence in a way they never anticipated. It is often said that we measure value based on how others perceive something. This is why exclusivity increases desire, why the most sought after things in life are the ones that not everyone has access to. When you become someone who is seen, appreciated, and desired by others, whether in friendships, career opportunities, or even romantic attention, it creates a ripple effect. The one who let you go now sees you through a different lens, not because you changed for them, but because you changed for yourself. The most compelling individuals are those who do not dwell in the past, who do not hold on to what no longer serves them, who step into the world with a renewed sense of purpose. They do not seek revenge, nor do they waste energy trying to prove their worth to someone who failed to recognize it. Instead, they live in a way that makes it impossible for anyone to ignore their presence. And in doing so, they do not just heal from the breakup, they transcend it entirely. What unsettles someone the most after a breakup is not anger, not confrontation, not even indifference. It is witnessing the undeniable truth that their absence did not define you. That your life, instead of shrinking, expanded. That you did not just survive the breakup, but you thrived beyond it. And in that realization, they are left with the weight of what they lost, a weight that only grows heavier with time.
There is a certain kind of power in doing nothing, not in the sense of passivity or weakness, but in the deliberate choice to withhold reaction, to remain unmoved, to resist the impulse to validate someone's actions with a response. It is a power rooted in self-control and in restraint, in the unshakable confidence that not everything deserves your attention. And when it comes to making someone feel the weight of losing you, nothing is more unsettling than realizing that their presence or absence has no effect on you. People expect reactions. They expect anger, jealousy, confrontation. They expect you to watch their every move, to analyze their choices, to show some sign that you are still emotionally invested. And this expectation gives them power because as long as you react, they know they still hold space in your mind. But when you refuse to engage, when you show no sign of interest, when you carry on as if their existence is entirely irrelevant to your own, it creates a void, a sense of confusion, a nagging discomfort that grows with time. The reason this is so effective is deeply rooted in human psychology. People crave validation, even from those they have left behind. They want to know that they mattered, that their choices had an impact, that they are still significant in your story. When they attempt to provoke a response, whether through social media, mutual friends, or calculated actions designed to test your emotions, they are not just acting out of curiosity. They are seeking reassurance that they were important enough to disrupt your world. And when you give them nothing, when you refuse to play into that dynamic, it forces them to sit with their own emotions, to question their own significance, to feel the very absence they once assumed you would be the one to feel. Indifference is often mistaken for coldness, but in reality it is a form of quiet strength. It is not about pretending to be unaffected. It is about actually reaching a place where their actions no longer dictate your emotions. And this shift is what makes them feel the breakup in a way they never expected. Because when someone sees that they no longer have control over your reactions, they start to lose control over their own. The most fascinating part of this process is that the less you respond, the more they think about you. Silence creates a space for imagination, and imagination is far more powerful than any confrontation ever could be. When you do not react, they begin to wonder what is going on in your mind, what you are feeling, what your silence means. And because they have no answers, their mind begins to fill in the gaps. The uncertainty, the lack of clarity, the inability to gauge where you stand, it all creates a psychological tension that lingers far longer than any argument or emotional outburst ever would. There is also an undeniable allure in someone who is unbothered. See, confidence is magnetic, and nothing speaks to confidence more than the ability to walk away from a situation without looking back. When you show that you do not need to respond, that you do not need to seek closure, that you do not need to prove anything, it shifts the entire dynamic of power. You are no longer reacting to them, they are now reacting to your absence. And this shift is what makes them feel the breakup in a way that words never could. People often chase what they cannot have, and the moment someone senses that they have lost their hold over you, they begin to question everything. The very act of trying to make you jealous, to get a reaction, to test your emotions, it all comes from a place of insecurity, of needing validation. And when you refuse to give it, when you stand firm in your detachment, it creates an imbalance that leaves them unsettled. Time plays a crucial role in this. At first, they may not notice. They may assume that you are simply pretending, that eventually you will break, that sooner or later you will give them the reaction they are looking for. But as time passes and you remain unchanged, as they continue to test the waters and find no response, the reality begins to sink in. They no longer have access to you in the way they once did. And that realization is what makes them feel the loss in its full intensity. The beauty of this approach is that it requires nothing from you except the decision to prioritize yourself. There is no need for games, no need for manipulation, no need to prove anything. You simply continue living, growing, evolving without looking back. And in doing so, you do not just move on from the breakup, you rise above it entirely. You show, without ever needing to say a word, that your value was never tied to their recognition of it. And that is what makes them feel the weight of losing you in a way they never saw coming. There is a moment after every breakup when a choice must be made. A choice between staying trapped in the echoes of what was or stepping boldly into the unknown of what could be. This moment is defining, not just in how it shapes the way you heal, but in how it forces the one who left to reconsider everything they thought they knew about you. Nothing makes someone feel the weight of a breakup more than realizing that the person they once knew has become someone completely out of reach. Thriving without someone is not just about survival. It is about reinvention. It is about becoming the version of yourself that perhaps even you had neglected while being with them. When a breakup happens, it creates space and emptiness that many rush to fill with distractions, rebounds, or endless scrolling through memories. But the real transformation comes when that space is used not as a void to be escaped, but as an opportunity to evolve. When your focus shifts from what was lost to what can be gained, everything changes, and this change does not go unnoticed. There is something deeply unsettling about watching someone flourish after you have left their life. It forces a confrontation with a truth that many do not want to face, the truth that they were not essential to your happiness. When they see that your world has not just continued but expanded, that you are more confident, more fulfilled, more radiant than ever before, it creates a dissonance in their mind. They begin to wonder, did I ever really know her? Was I holding her back? If she is this incredible now, was I blind to her worth all along? And perhaps the most haunting question of all, was either thing standing in the way of her becoming this version of herself? People expect sadness after a breakup. They expect withdrawal, regret, a slow unraveling. They expect to see some evidence that they mattered, that their absence left a mark. But when they see the opposite, when they see joy, progress, and undeniable glow, it unsettles them. It forces them to reckon with the fact that their departure did not define you. And that realization is far more powerful than any words you could ever say. Thriving is not about proving anything to them. It is about proving something to yourself. It is about stepping fully into your own potential, about rediscovering passions that may have been forgotten, about saying yes to new experiences that stretch and challenge you. It is about walking into rooms with an energy that speaks before you do, an energy that says, I am not waiting for life to happen to me. I am creating it on my terms. And here is the paradox. The moment you stop caring whether they notice is the exact moment they begin to. When you no longer move in ways designed to be seen, when your actions are driven purely by your own fulfillment, you become magnetic in a way that is impossible to ignore. The confidence that comes from truly thriving is not performative, it is felt. It is in the way you carry yourself, the way you laugh, the way you exist with a kind of lightness that only comes from no longer being weighed down by the past. The beauty of this journey is that it is entirely yours. It does not require validation, nor does it hinge on whether or not they ever come to the realization that they lost something irreplaceable. But the irony is they almost always do. By the time they see it, by the time they feel the full weight of what they let go, you will be so far ahead, so deeply immersed in the life you have built, that the only question left will be whether or not they even deserve a second thought. There is something undeniably powerful about walking away, not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, and energetically. It is one thing to end a relationship, to say the words and create distance, but it is something entirely different to truly detach, to remove someone's grip on your mind, to reach a place where they no longer have access to your energy. That is the moment when the breakup shifts from being something you experience to something they feel. And the moment they feel it, they begin to understand a truth that only time can reveal. Losing you was not just about losing a relationship. It was about losing a presence, a force, an irreplaceable energy that cannot be replicated. Most people do not realize what they have lost until it is too late. In It is not because they did not care in the moment, but because human nature makes us take for granted what feels familiar. While they were with you, they had access to your warmth, your kindness, your understanding. They had access to your laughter, your attention, the way you made them feel seen. Even in the moments they may have pulled away deep down, they assumed you would always be there in some capacity. The most impactful thing you can ever do is prove them wrong, not out of spite, not out of bitterness, but out of the quiet realization that you are too valuable to linger where you are not fully appreciated. The way you make someone feel your absence is not by blocking them, arguing with them, or trying to prove your worth. It is by removing yourself so completely that they are forced to sit with the emptiness you once filled. It is by living so fully that your presence is no longer something they can casually assume will return. And what makes this so effective is that it does not happen all at once. At first, they may feel relief, distraction, the illusion of freedom. As time passes and they look around, they will notice that something is missing. Not just anyone, but you. The absence of a person is not just about missing their voice or their physical presence. It is about missing the version of oneself that existed when they were around. You were not just another person in their life. You were a mirror, a safe space, a source of energy that made them feel a certain way. And when that energy is removed, when it is no longer available, they begin to feel the contrast. The excitement you brought, the way you listened, the way you understood them, in ways they may not have even understood themselves. These things cannot be easily replaced. They may try. They may distract themselves with other people, new experiences, anything that dulls the weight of what they let go. Odia, nothing ever truly feels the same. There is a reason why people return long after a breakup, why they reach out when you least expect it, why they suddenly begin to watch from a distance even after choosing to leave. It is because energy is felt long after words are forgotten. When you have truly removed yourself, when you have taken back everything you once so freely gave, it creates a void that cannot be ignored. And the most haunting realization for them is that they can no longer reach you in the way they once could. Not because you are unavailable, not because you are punishing them, but because you have simply outgrown the version of yourself that once waited, that once needed their validation, that once believed they were irreplaceable. By the time they realize what they lost, you will have already stepped into something greater. Your energy will have shifted, your perspective will have expanded, your standards will have risen to a place where they may no longer fit. And this is what makes them feel the breakup in its full intensity. Not the moment you walked away, but the moment they understand that there is no longer a path back to you. That the version of you who once loved them, who once gave them your time, your patience, your heart, that version no longer exists in the way they remember. And in that realization, they are left with nothing but the weight of what they let slip through their fingers.